trustee meeting. Would you please join me in rising for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'll now do a roll call for our trustees. Please answer present when you hear your name. Joe Raffiani. Present. Jana Hafer.
Present.
Michael Leo. Russ Hall.
Present.
Tanya Ludwig.
Present.
Scott McCullough.
Present.
Brian Yates.
Present.
And Jen Hoffman.
Present.
Perfect, thank you. Now, as the COVID-19 crisis continues to rapidly progress, we will do our best to continue to update the parents and the students in our community on the educational changes and the challenges that are constantly evolving. And so as we would enter into this meeting, we will go first to the superintendent's report. And during that report, Superintendent Upham will give us the latest update on information on school closures, educational platforms, and other items that the district is focused on working on this week. So with that, Superintendent Upham, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, trustees and LST members and members from the public. I first want to start by thanking again the executive directors for their report out on last Thursday's board meeting. And also, I encourage our viewers, if there are questions about different departments, whether that be SPED, special services, academic facilities, to review that board meeting, because that information brought everyone up to speed on where we are as far as the COVID-19 outbreak. So excellent information there if you have questions about individual departments. I want to talk about the Facebook Live. I've done 2 of them now, and what's fascinating with this, maybe not so much for you, but for me, the first Facebook Live session, we had a little over 4,000 viewers view that first session. And as of now on the second session, which was today, we're just shy of 10,000. And so the information that's being disseminated in that 30-minute period from 12:30 to 1 p.m. Is being watched quite extensively. And we are sharing up-to-date information specific to the issues we're dealing with in real time. So I want to thank the viewers that are watching, and then also we're doing our best to answer the questions that are coming forward. Please mind that please remember that 10,000 views is difficult if there's that many questions, but we're doing our best to answer that. Quick education update. Had meetings today with our elementary principals and our high school principals. We'll touch base with our middle school principals soon. One of the 3 areas that I want them to focus on, and which is really coming to fruition that we need to pay attention to, is I recommended that they get as much virtual personal time as possible. As I've shared with our public, our teachers and our administrators are saying that our students are reaching out, that they do want as contact. And had a conversation with a kindergarten teacher yesterday in the grocery store, and she said that she's doing her best to reach out and call her students at least a couple times a week. And they are, some of them are in tears when they hear her voice and asking how many more sleeps are there going to be before I get to see you again. And heartwarming at the inception of the conversation. But that being said, again, I reiterate to everyone how important it is to make virtual personal contact to the best of your ability, your voice, your face, all of those types of things. We do have some teachers. One of the things that's going across the country right now, which is fascinating and really exciting, is they're doing teacher parades where teachers are driving through their neighborhoods, waving out of their vehicles to students who are waving back at them. So just a real yearning for that personal contact, and a reminder for all of us how important that is. One of the highlights you may have picked up in the Gazette, this unfolded extremely quick, but one of the neurosurgeons from Billings Clinic, using 3D printers, developed an insert that they can use in their N95 mask, which increases the safety, has reached out to our district. Amy Leffler and Scott Anderson took lead on this. I believe we have upwards of 8 3D printers manned by our teachers, actively cutting those components out for the hospitals at this point in time. Just a really, really neat story. The other part that made me feel very good, Sue Runkle and her extended efforts, we are now delivering meals to our homeless students in different areas. So that's a very good thing. Another big question that came at us from the educational side was the ACT. Obviously, the ACT has been canceled, the March date, which was tomorrow, and rescheduled for April 21st. So people who are watching this, make sure you check our COVID-19 drop-down site with billingschools.org and look at the assessment. That information is being updated constantly. As we look at the calendar, that's one of the main questions that came to me today in my superintendent Facebook Live broadcast. Mr. Upham, are we going to go longer? Are we going to come back? Well, the fact of the matter is, I'm assuming that we will go at least into the middle of April. I do not have any concrete information to support that, but we are making plans at this time for that. I am hopeful that the governor will announce what his plans are early in the week. As I look at dates, Mr. Felton has closures on public places past the governor's, and his is till 4/10, April 10th. The governor's original declaration ends on this Friday, so we are hopeful that we'll gain additional information early this week, which we will get out immediately. Remember, I am broadcasting live each day of the week for that 30-minute period, 12:30 to 1 p.m. Another big question that keeps coming, and I think we need to continue to answer, is graduation. What does graduation look like? Well, we haven't canceled graduation. We haven't postponed it. I have not said that we are having graduation. That's a watch and wait at that point right now. So as far as the calendars go, we will stay in constant contact what that looks like. Now, as far as the educational platform, it's very evident that as we move forward, we look at an online platform and we're going to look at a traditional platform, and we may have both platforms in one classroom. I'm happy to say that in the report outs today by our building administrators that it appears that we are in the high 90s, 95 to 98, 99% of students have been contacted, and we are in the process of distributing electronic materials to them. And then our social workers are assisting homes that do not have internet capacity and working with that. If we can't get the digital instructional platform to them, we are prepared to do pencil and paper. These are challenges that are real, and I'm not going to say it's something small. It's large, and that equity of education is a concern for all of us, but we are doing our best. We are absolutely doing our best to ensure that that's the case. I do reach out to the parents that we haven't contacted. If you haven't been contacted, please contact your school. We are prepared to support your students however that needs to be. From that being said, I opened up a conversation across the district today on proficiencies. We need to start talking about proficiencies and what does proficiency mean? I think it's a good question. Depending on the amount of time that we have with our students, safe to say, I think we'll probably move into tier 2, which is mid-April. Tier 3 would be the end of the school year. What do proficiencies look like? Proficiency should also help guide instruction. We're asking our teachers to do is to strip down the instruction to the essentials of the essentials specific to the proficiencies that we feel our students are going to need. We have some easy ways to determine proficiencies, and that would be through our standardized tests and so on and so forth, but I don't know if that's the best way to determine proficiency. I think we're going to have to rely on multiple measures of proficiency, because actually once we look to define proficiency will then dictate the amount of time the students need, the type of resources the students need, and all of that moving forward. I think that now starts to become a critical question. What does proficiency mean? In making that statement, we struggle with proficiencies or students meeting proficiencies in a regular school year anyway. It's been my mantra that if I'm not reading on grade level on day 180, what am I supposed to do on day 181? So we're wrestling with just some natural and normal type situations, but please know that the conversations around proficiency have started, and those will unfold as we look to the future to see just the amount of time that we have with students, if we're out for the remainder of the year, if we're not. So that is going to be a moving target. So quick recap for my report. Number one, huge shout out to our teachers involved with the Billings Clinic in St. V's. Also a big thank you to the community for the blood drive that filled up by halfway through the first day. The delivery of food to our homeless students makes me feel good. Assessment updates are on our website. And then the timeline, we are in a watch and wait from the governor's office as to whether he's going to extend the school closure or not, or if it matches, coincides with Mr. Felton's closure up to the 10th. That is my hope as a superintendent, that we are consistent in school closures that are consistent with our county health officer. So I'll stop there.
Thanks, Superintendent Upham. And that will bring us to the next agenda item, which is really something that if our school closures continue, we're going to need to contend with. And I did attach the governor's directive again to the agenda, and it's summarized in the executive summary, which says an education action plan for Billings Public Schools is being designed to comply with Governor Bullock's directive on March 19th, which instructed school districts to plan for and implement the following. Number one, off-site learning instruction and structure. 2, school meals consistent with what the district regularly provides. 3, services for students with disability. And 4, other services customarily provided to students. Once the education action plan is final and approved by the trustees, the governor, in consultation with OPI, will approve the plan and waive requirements for student instructions. So I have asked Jeff Weldon to work on this, and I know that Greg is working, Superintendent Upham is working with some of the executive directors on working to design a plan. I think that the update that we got from our executive directors was phenomenal and really the gold standard for going forward. They did a really wonderful job of encapsulating what they're doing, and they are clearly working hard for the benefit of our students. A lot of positive feedback I got from people in the community within 6 feet distance on the reports that were given by the executive directors. And so I really very much appreciate that. I asked Jeff Weldon to comment on this educational plan for action. And as they work on it, we are anticipating a meeting on Wednesday at 11:30, at which point the plan will be again reviewed and action will be taken so that we can move forward to submitting it to the governor if those steps are required. So I've asked our attorney, Jeff Weldon, who has been ever ready for us as we're going through these ever-changing moments, and Superintendent Upham to give us some input on this educational action plan. So I'll pass it on to you folks.
Greg, you want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you? And I'll follow up. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. I think the parade is a great idea. I might just apply that in my profession, but I fear if I drove around, I wouldn't get waves with full hands. So maybe I'll pass on that. So what we are operating on now is the governor's directive of March 19th, which we went through last Thursday. And it's not a particularly detailed directive. So everybody in the school community is trying to figure out exactly what that plan is supposed to look like in form. And my comment to the superintendent last Thursday was the report that was given to the board really is, in my opinion, the kind of plan that the governor may well have had in mind, which is you look at each of your departments or your executive areas and get a detailed plan to the board so the board can understand, ask questions, and is satisfied that the constitutional rights of our children are actually being met through the executive function of your school district. So the governor's plan said that we should use these 2 weeks to make a plan in case the closures go beyond the 27th. No instruction was required during those 2 weeks, but it was encouraged if you could provide it, you should, and you have been. So then the initial plan, which needs to be presented to and reviewed and ultimately approved by the board, needs to attend to those 4 areas that we identified last Thursday and is on your agenda in the packet, which is essentially what is the school district going to do to provide quality education through remote learning? What are you going to do relative to school meals? Thirdly, what are you going to do about FAPE, free appropriate public education for kids with disabilities? And then something called other services customarily provided to students in school. So it appears that the conventional wisdom is that that sort of plan should be at least preliminarily reviewed and approved by the board before the end of this 2-week period, which of course is Friday. So the plan is, as the chair mentioned, is the board would come back together in special meeting virtually on Wednesday at 11:30 to review what the executive team has put together, which I think is going to be something akin to what you've been hearing the last couple of meetings. The board can then ask questions about it. If the board is satisfied that it's an adequate initial plan to address those 4 areas, then we'd ask the board to approve the initial plan, understanding that as time rolls on, other changes may need to occur. The plan at this point is that the executive team would continue to work on a written document presented to the board on Wednesday starting at 11:30 and get public opinion when we get it finished, or I'm promising you something that Greg's going to do. When it's finished, it'll be up on the website that the public can take a look at it and then offer their commentary at Wednesday at 11:30. You have a special board meeting scheduled at 11 o'clock on Wednesday to attend to a settlement of a litigation that has nothing to do with what we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, but it's something the board needs to attend to. That's at 11 o'clock. At one point during that meeting, we'll ask you to go into closed session to discuss litigation strategy, which the board has done in the past. That meeting will then adjourn, but immediately the next meeting, a special meeting, as a continuation of this one, will start. So that's what I understand is the next steps. And I'll let Greg kind of fill in what's gone so far into this.
Thanks, Jeff. I don't have much more to fill in other than we will follow suit with the executive director reports out. The guiding light in all of this is, as I shared in my superintendent's report, it will be to try to find proficiency. That is the challenge for all of us across the country because it adjusts. Once we define proficiencies, it will then adjust timing, resources, all of those types of situations. And again, the moving target is we don't know how long we will be out. So the governor's piece, I think, is simple. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We'll just replicate what was reported out, as that was very heavy in detail and I think effective with what we've done so far.
Okay, that wraps that up. So on Wednesday at 11:30 will be a continuation of this meeting, as Jeff stated, and we will be reviewing the educational action plan at that time and plan to take a vote. So we will need a quorum, but we haven't had any trouble getting a quorum together for these virtual meetings, and I very much appreciate that and appreciate all of the time and commitment our board members have put to this. So the next item on the agenda is the COVID-19 available resources. We felt it was important to continue to have these resources listed. You know, if folks want to take a look at our agenda, they just go to the Billings Public Schools website, go to the school board, and you'll see all of the current and past agendas. So you can download that information. One of the things that Superintendent Upham mentioned was his little lunchtime with the soup. And I think that that's been very effective to relaying information, answering questions, providing updates. And so that is currently happening every day from 12:30 to 1 o'clock. You can also go to the Billings Public School website for the COVID-19 update. You can get Superintendent Upham's newsletters. And if you don't have it, there's an icon that you can click on to subscribe to that. The Office of Public Instruction continues to update information on COVID-19 on their website, opi.mt.gov. MTPEC also has information. I did add the Center for Disease Control because they are also working on the forefront, and information is rolling out of the CDC continuously. Last meeting, Jana mentioned that Riverstone Health also has COVID information available, and that's at riverstonehealth.org. So those are resources that you can check with for the latest updates on COVID-19 and also for recommendations on how to stay safe during this time. Are there any questions on that? All right, then that moves us to the business office update, and I will pass that on to Mr. Craig Van Ice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the business office, right now, most of our staff is working off-site, with the exception of our payroll group. Our payroll group has been in the office over the course of the last week. Right now, we're working on rolling out a plan this week that would allow everyone off-site work capability in the event the closure is extended. I may be having some internet trouble here. It looks a little choppy, but I'll keep going unless someone tells me otherwise. The business office staff has been available by phone and email, but right now lacks the ability to network into our Business Plus software, which is a critical component of our business office functionality. Our rollout plan includes adding that network access into the Business Plus software for our remote employees. Right now, we have lots of incoming mail that needs to be organized and processed. That includes vendor invoices, incoming payments for deposit, and scattering of other items that we need to handle. And staff will be on site to do some of this work Wednesday and Thursday of this week. The hope is that we can take the scope of all that incoming mail and that work off-site here in the near future. But for the time being, we're going to continue to process payroll and perform all the other duties of the business office to the best of our ability until we're fully remote and operational. As far as payroll, our payroll team has been on site since last Tuesday processing payroll. The teachers were paid last Friday, and support staff is on track to be paid tomorrow. The next payroll cycle is scheduled for April 8th. That's also our support staff. And then administration will be paid on April 15th, and then teachers again on April 20th. So between now and April 8th, we have a couple weeks to figure out whether payroll can be processed by a completely remote team. Assuming everyone has access to the system, the only concern would be the printing of paper checks, but we're working on ideas to work around that as well. And I'd like to commend the team in the payroll department for their efforts to ensure our employee groups are being paid on time and in good order. Their effort over the last week has been outstanding, and I'd like to thank them for all their work. And that's the update from the business office, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Craig Van Ice? I'd like to take this time to thank Craig for all of his help. In addition to being the CFO, he is our clerk. And so he has been working with me to get our agendas put together and to work through the little bumps along the way. And I appreciate him being available to work through them. So thank you very much, Craig. All right, were there any questions of Craig on the business office update? Okay, thank you. So that brings us to the last agenda item, communication from the public. And as we did modify our communication from the public, the salient points are that public comment for this evening's virtual meeting can be submitted in electronic format using the Google Documents link provided on the district's webpage. When accessing the district's homepage or school board page, a pop-up window will appear with a link to the Google document. Submissions require a full name and home address in order to be submitted for the record and are limited to a 500-word count. Submissions will be screened and read verbally by the district clerk prior to the conclusion of the meeting. And again, I do want to make sure that our community knows that we don't answer your questions on as you submit them, and that can be kind of frustrating, but it is something that we pay attention to. When we have our next meeting on Wednesday at 11:30, prior to voting, we will make a slight modification so that if people do submit comments, we'll be able to hear those comments prior to the board taking a vote on the educational action plan. So with that, I will ask Craig, have we had any public comment submissions?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are 2 public comments. I'll start with the first. This is from Danny Neiman at 1612 Walker Lane. The comment is, I have boot camp June 8th, and if school is to be made up, I can't ship out. What are my options? And the second comment is from Brittany O'Malley at 449 Judith. Comment is the homework mandatory? I've heard that it is, and then others are saying it isn't. I've talked to teachers that aren't able to answer this and are confused on this. Also, how would we get that paperwork back to the school? Are these graded assignments or are they mandatory? That concludes public comment, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. And as people do submit questions, if they would look at the frequently asked question page or perhaps turn in tune in at 12:30 to send those questions to Superintendent Upham as he has his daily updates. That might be a better venue to get questions answered, but I appreciate folks paying attention and asking questions that are important for them and for their families. So with that, we will recess this meeting until 11:30 on Wednesday, March 25th. And I thank you for your attendance. Have a great evening and stay safe. Bye-bye.